Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, this channel is about my journey throughout CRNA school. As I mentioned last week, I'd be doing a front-loaded versus integrated comparison of CRNA school programs. If you guys are interested, let's get into the nitty-gritty. I'm gonna try my best to be as unbiased as possible when it comes to my opinions on the programs that they offer to complete CRNA school. I'm gonna go into detail on what they are and how I feel like I came to my conclusion that I preferred one style of learning over the other, but it's all up to you how you prefer to learn. So let's just get to it. So what's the difference and what is it? So front-loaded programs means just that you have all the didactic in the front. So you won't really be getting into the hospital, at least not for like true clinicals, until about 1.5 years into the program. And then if you're in an integrated program, it is just that. The clinical and the didactic is integrated together. So you'll have maybe some didactic, some clinical within the same semester. So you're completing essentially the clinical hours as you're completing your didactic. Whereas in the front loaded, you're completing the majority of your didactic before you get to clinical. And then once you're in clinical, you're really only working on doctoral projects and doctoral type classes. So that being said, what are the pros and cons of both? So I'm going to get into front loaded. The program that I'm in is a front loaded program and I'm in my second semester now. I'm going to say the pros for these. The pros, I think, is that for the most part, you're pretty much done with the heavy mind, like mind focusing classes. Like I personally can't manage being in clinical while also studying for major tests. Like I feel like once I'm done with all the major stuff that I need to learn, then I can focus on clinical. I'm the kind of person that I do better learning on the job. So I feel like, learning in a skills lab, learning in a class is so different than learning hands-on. So I want to get the knowledge-based stuff out of the way because no matter what, those are credits that you have to fulfill no matter what. So I'm like, I said no matter what twice, by the way. So I feel like if I have to, I'd rather have my mind focused on that and just get it out of the way. 1.5 years of my time moved out of the way, and then I can have the last 1.5 years pretty much focused to getting in my hours that I need for my different skills, procedures, types of anesthesia, that kind of thing. I'd rather have my mind focused for that and have my mind focused for didactics separate. The drawback though is like they say that you may not feel as prepared or that your skills may not be as up to par as somebody in an integrated program because they've had a solid 1.5 years where they've been working on skills that you haven't, or that if you have, you've been working on them in a skills lab, which isn't the same. But in my opinion, I feel like how does it work for like medical school? Like I feel like medical school is 4 years of didactic and then you do your fellowships and your residencies. So do you feel like going into residency that you're not ready? No one really ever is. It's just like it's learning on the job, but at least you've already knocked out all the didactic stuff. So you really can focus on one thing versus the other and your mind isn't all over the place. So what I was trying to get at is that the drawback is that you're not as ready. Even though like people say that you forget the stuff that you've already learned, but I feel like you can incorporate the knowledge that you've gained in your didactic and apply that to your clinicals and then kind of figure it out as you go. Now, I can't really go into too much detail with integrated programs because I'm not in it, but I'm gonna give you what I thought were my opinions on why I'd prefer to do a front-loaded program, and which is why I applied to more schools that were front-loaded versus integrated. Well, when you're in an integrated program, depending on how the structure works, you're more than likely going to be getting into the hospital within your second semester or so after you've started school. And then you're going to be working on heavy knowledge-based courses as well as clinicals. I'm not sure so much on how many days you'd be in clinical, how many days you'd be in class, but I would assume that you'd be between 1 to 4 days in clinical and like maybe 1 to 2 days in class. I'm not sure if based on the clinical site, if they allow you to call in remote for classes, because I've heard that some clinical sites, depending on the school, are kind of far. It just depends on how your school is working and the structure of it. But I'm not sure exactly how many days a week you're in clinical, how many days a week you're in class, or if that changes with semester to semester. That all is tailored based on the school. But think about it, you're working on some pretty heavy stuff, like heavy knowledge material, and also doing clinical that really requires a lot of your mind. You can't be kind of half-half on both. Like, you want to make sure that you're giving your full mindset to didactic and your full mindset to clinical, because really in clinical you have a patient's safety on your hands. I mean, you have somebody that you're working under and they're going to guide you, but the point is that, you know, you have to be focused in either realm. So in my opinion, not that I'm the word I want to use is like all over the place, but I feel like I'd rather have my focus on one thing and the other. Not that I can't multitask, I totally can, but in my opinion, I just felt like integrated was going to cause my anxiety to reach an all-time high, and I preferred a front-loaded program. So the pros of the integrated program is that you get to clinical sooner, you learn on the job sooner. The drawback is that you're not as prepared to get into clinical. I don't think you'll ever be prepared no matter what kind of program you're in, but if you don't have the knowledge base, you kind of have to study ahead of time. Like, if you're gonna do a cardiac case and you haven't really covered that yet, then you're gonna have to go ahead and study on your own, make sure that you're ready for the case. So then that's a lot of self-study that, you know, not that it won't help you in the long run, but you're kind of self-guiding your way into clinicals. But I don't know, I just feel like I would prefer to be taught before I get into some pretty heavy clinical stuff. Either way, it's like hit or miss. You're gonna have some drawbacks in both, but I just think that, you know, you just got to get it done. No matter how it works, you got to get it done. We're all going to be CRNAs in the end, whether you're in a front-loaded program or an integrated program. Either way, you're going to finish at the finish line. You're going to take your boards and be board certified CRNAs. But which would you prefer? I would definitely take into consideration the pros and cons of both. Definitely do your research before you've made a decision on which school you want to apply to. If you really don't have the choice to pick from schools, then obviously you're going to go wherever you think that you'll get in. But think about it, you know, sit back and really think about how you want your education to be tailored. If you want it to be structured in a way that you feel like you can manage by multitasking, then do an integrated program. I'm sure you'd be fine. You'd be prepared. They prepare you, and that's the point of the school, right? And then if you prefer to be focused on one thing and then the other, that way you can have your full mindset on one or the other instead of being in two different places at once, then maybe try a front-loaded program. But either way, I think you'd be well off, because these schools really are there to make sure that you learn the material. So they're not going to make you go into there without actually, you know, having some sort of knowledge. And I will say this too, if you're very honest with your preceptor about where you stand, like, I think that when I start clinicals, I'm going to tell them, listen, I am in a front-loaded program, but my baseline is at 0. I have little to no experience when it comes to the actual anesthesia portion of it with an actual patient. I've shadowed a few hours, but I don't feel like that has me ready to be someone that can manage anesthesia on my own just yet. And just make them aware of where you stand and where your knowledge base is, so that they can tailor your education based on that, you know. So if they know baseline that there's really no anesthesia specific material in your brain, then they're going to make sure that they start from the beginning. And hopefully they're very what's the word I want to use, kind to you, because I've heard that going to clinicals can be a really traumatizing experience. That's off the bat, like, nobody has told me they've had a really, really great experience for the most part. I feel like I haven't heard anyone tell me that they've had like a stellar clinical experience. Like, you'll be humbled for sure, but I think that with time you feel more comfortable, and you know, the more that you do, the more that you practice, the easier it'll become, and the more comfortable you'll be. Once you get comfortable with the uncomfortable, then it starts becoming second nature. So that's all I have for you as far as front-loaded versus integrated programs. Really do your research when it comes to which school that you want to apply to, based on where you want your education to go and how you want your future to pan out. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye!